Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Area 51.
Hello, folks. Hey, Rahul.
What's up, Sanjay? I think for the first time after months, we are going to do an episode that does not involve any sad stories, no tragic ends, nothing of that sort.
Yeah, it's like you mentioned just before this recording. Even Auntie, your mom, mentioned that we are getting a little too depressing for ourselves. So time to bring back some of that optimism that we had.
Yep. She heard it and she's like, "Hey, could you do one of your earlier episode kind of format where there's some laughter and there's some lame jokes or something like that?" And I was like, "My God, mom, is it that bad?" But I guess if it resonated that strongly with you folks, and it was not just my mom who reached out, I think we've done justice to what has happened, because the topics that we covered, the stories that we spoke, or the people we spoke about, we just wanted to make sure that they got the justice that they deserved, or they were remembered, or their voices were heard. And that was essentially the aim behind the episodes that we did. Today, we've decided to do something a little bit positive. We're going to talk about an immigrant who has gone through many struggles and challenges, who's not accepted defeat, who's kept fighting, and who's now a founder of a brand new startup.
And not just that, this is like the story that the person we're bringing on is a story of a future immigrant success story. Possibly, like in a few years, we're probably going to see.
I think it's already a success story. I think it's already a success story. It's not future; it's already happening right now. Think about it, Sanjay. I mean, the person we're talking about has bridged the gap that I've personally felt being in an NRI. We've spoken about it multiple times, right? India being one of the fastest growing economies, right?
Yep.
For an NRI who's living outside India to have access to invest in that growing economy has always been very difficult in terms of the number of hoops you've had to jump through, or even other challenges. And the platform that we're going to talk about, or the founder who we have on the podcast right now, has identified that and has created a product that helps us bridge that gap. So welcome to our show, Hemant.
Hey, everyone.
I mean, typically, like, what do we do, Rahul? Like, when we complain about something like, oh man, I wish we could do this, and that's it. We have a sob story, but Hemant decided, you know what, I'm just going to build an entire company around this and make sure other people have access to the same thing. So, kudos, Hemant, and welcome to our show.
It's like Muffat Patel and Patel Brothers, he fixed it.
Hey guys, glad to be here. Really fortunate to be here and also speaking to everyone.
Awesome. Thanks for agreeing to come on the podcast. I remember reaching out to Hemant on LinkedIn. I had seen a bunch of posts and I had seen a couple of his interviews before. And I was like, I really want to talk about this on the podcast because it's going to help all the Indian immigrants in US, the platform that he's built. And I reached out and Hemant replied back within a day or two. He was in India, respect to the time zones, all the work commitments. He reached out. And then within a day, he's like, yeah, let's do it. Then it was just tough coordinating between the time zones and the holidays with Diwali and Thanksgiving in between. And I think we finally made it. Here we are.
Yep, exactly. And for the fact that like you're building a fast growing startup and making the time to, talk about your journey to us, we really do appreciate that as well.
So you know what? We have not spoken about the startup itself. Hemant, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and your product? Because we haven't spoken about it enough. We just said that it's bridged a lot of gaps. Everyone listening in is probably wondering what it does. So you want to give us a quick introduction about yourself and the product that you built?
Yeah, sure. I'm Hemant, and as an immigrant, I moved to the US in 2017 in New York, started my job at Mckinsey, and then also went through a bunch of, companies, worked at Meta, Walmart after that, and then started to build on this startup, which is iNRI. It's essentially an investment platform for NRIs or Indian expats to invest in India. And I think the motivation really came to me having experienced the problems firsthand as an immigrant myself. And, it came to me after 3 or 4 years as I started building my capital in the US. I realized, I want to invest in India, but there's no good way to do it. Although there do exist a lot of platforms, like Zerodha, Grow, and many more brokers, but they don't really do a great justice at serving the NRI community. And I think primarily because the product was made, for the resident Indian and not for the NRI customer in mind. So a lot of the problems they solve for, may not really solve for the NRI community. And that's where we see the opportunity and the gap. We see that there are problems that could be addressed, and it's such a cross-border issue that some problems could be very different for a US NRI to a UK NRI, or maybe from someone from Middle East. So being able to abstract that out, make a very simple and clear solution, has a lot of value. And this is essentially what we're doing at iNRI. We're fortunate to be backed by YCombinator, and today we're proud to say that we started 9 months ago, but we are at about 2,500 plus signups and more than $100,000 invested through us.
Wow.
Wow.
That's a huge milestone, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats on that. And the fact that, like, see, 2,500 people have signed up for it already in 9 months of building something. It just speaks to, what sort of a huge demand there is for something like this, right? Like, because.
And $100,000 invested.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's a lot of money. I mean, like, Rahul can probably, attest to this. Like, so both of our parents, like, they spent most of their careers in the Middle East. And at that point in time, like, while they were working, the idea of investing their money was probably not even in the picture. The only thing they do is they just send money to a savings account in India and it just stay there, or you'll probably buy some real estate. That was considered progressive at that point in time. And it's surprising to hear
because there was no platform, right, Sanjay? I mean, think about it, right? Accessibility was not there.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
The fact that there is a product like iNRI was not there when we grew up in the Middle East, or at least I'm not sure. I've not done a market research to see in Dubai if there was something like that. But if such a platform is not there, by default, you end up looking at what else you could do, which is savings account, or real estate was a very common and big thing. Like you make your money in the Middle East, you transfer that to India, you buy plots of land, build houses. And I feel a milestone in your savings or your professional or your personal lives is when you can say that, you know what, I bought a house, I've constructed a house, and it's ready to go. And that's when you're like, okay, now time to start thinking about retirement.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't any other platform they could use to actually invest. So it's, I think they could have benefited from this, I think 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Sheesh, Hemant, you should have started this like 30 years ago.
I think the seed was planted. I was born that time. So
there you go. There you go.
Nice. But let's talk about your journey from the start, Hemant. So was this something that you always wanted to do? Like, was this an idea that you had right from when you were pursuing your bachelor's? You told me that you were one of those extremely smart kids in India who cracked the IIT exams and got into IITs, right?
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I mean, fortunate to be, like getting into IIT. But to be honest, I think this may be true for every founder. We probably have never thought, this is something that I would build one day. But I think as I reflect back, I do see a lot of merit into what I've done, how these dots got connected to building something today, which is iNRI. And also, how I pursued my interest and my passion of doing something maybe out of my job or during my job. Yeah.
So was this desire to build something right from your IT days, or was that something that bug bit you or through your journey through life? Or when did it strike you that you want to do something?
Roughly, I think after IIT, I joined housing.com, and this was a big buzzing startup in 2013.
Oh, nice.
And, popular for many reasons.
Yeah, are you in touch with the CEO? I was just going to ask.
Not now, but definitely when I was there.
It was pretty infamous back in the day.
But I joined in a very heyday when housing really started growing up. It grew from maybe 10 to 100 or even more. I was among the founding engineer in the team, joined in 2013 very early on, and really saw a good growth, or like amazing growth, as it kind of spreading more verticals, getting into different cities. And that's where I realized, building something from scratch, or from very small to really big, is a lot of fun, and also kind of helps you learn a lot. Although I was an engineer, but I got a lot of exposure into just seeing things how they were happening, and that kind of really motivated me at that time that maybe one day I would probably want to start up myself.
You just love taking on like the hardest challenges, right? Like typically, like my definition of a hard challenge in high school was if I can barely even answer 2 questions on the joint entrance exam, that makes a big deal. Not only did you go and crack that, you got an IT, you decided, you know what, I don't want to go join a fancy large paying job. I'm just going to go the startup route again and make it even harder for me. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's something that you eat at home that your parents feed you that's like, let's go all in for this.
That's just a tip of the iceberg, he cracked IIM also, right?
Oh my God. I think it's a good thing that my mom's not hearing this, at least a few years back, because there'll be a lot of comparisons about where I am good for nothing.
Hey, you have a podcast, Sanjay.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks, Rahul.
So when did that journey end with housing, and what happened after that?
Yeah, that ended in 2015. I joined IIM Ahmedabad for a B school or MBA degree. Although that was not my first choice, to be honest. I was intending to. In 2014, I actually got a offer from a US startup based in SF, San Francisco, and I was really hoping to get there. But unfortunately, that didn't turn out well, because I got the visa, everything went through. I got the H-1B lottery, but a month before I would have joined, they had to cancel the offer because of funding reasons. At that time, I couldn't understand much. I was still new into how all this works, but kind of a sad moment where I thought, oh, I could have just been into the Silicon Valley, but missed my chance. But I also happened to just give the CAT exam and also get a good score. So I am happened, and I thought, well, maybe do this, and possibly this could open door for me learning business concepts and possibly getting into entrepreneurship with a more holistic approach. Like not just technical, which I'd been doing already, but like having learned in breadth multiple aspects of a business.
I like how casual he made it, man. I happen to give the CAT exam.
and that's what I was just about to provide.
And I
some
just
context.
cracked the 99th percentile. I just happened to crack the 99th percentile. Went to one of the top B schools in the country.
So for folks who don't know what IIM is like the Indian Institute of Management. A few B schools that are based out of India, like the top B schools. Typically in a year, they have, I think, like 200,000 students write an exam called the CAT exam. And the entrance cutoff, the percentage that you need to get into like any of the IIMs, is typically 98 percentile, and I think IIM is
99.
yeah, and IIM is like the the top of the top. It's probably like 99.99 or whatever. So yeah, this dude here is like just going and like walking in the park, and it's like, oh, you know what, tomorrow we'll be thinking about let's go catch the new movie at the theater. He's like thinking, you know what, the CAT exam's there. I might as well write it tomorrow and get into IIM.
Deviating a little bit, but there's a lot of folks who are like new immigrants who are just starting out who are listening to this, right? You made a very valid statement when you spoke about the fact that, your visa was kind of impacted when the startup took back their offer. For all the new folks who are coming in applying for visas, H-1Bs and anything else, getting into startups right at the very beginning, especially when you're conditional on H-1B lotteries and stuff like that, it's actually a very, very risky situation. Because you don't understand that the stability that a regular company might give you, it's not there in this world, because it's dependent on funding, dependent on different seed rounds. So if by any chance something happens, your options are gone, right? And for them, it's okay. But for you, you're dependent on a visa. I'm not saying don't look into startups. You learn a lot. There's a lot of work. It's exciting. But you've got to also keep an eye out for your visas in this. And that's something that could be impacted, just like how Hemant said that.
I mean, as long as you have a backup for IIM Ahmedabad, it's not a big deal, right, Rahul? Like,
yeah, that's Hemant's backup.
But yeah, that's awesome. Like, I mean, jokes aside, like it's like you can already see Hemant's trajectory, like where he's getting at with the sort of stuff he's done. This is way before what he's already built now and what he's building now. So
right, okay. So you reached IIM. How was your B school journey?
Yeah, very different from IIT. Like IIT is very much in depth. You're learning a certain discipline. Let's say I was in computer science, and so everything related to it. And then when you are at IIM, you're learning marketing, accounting, finance, operations, and you don't go too deep into each of these things. You're just learning or skimming through, but it gives you a good perspective into how different businesses are learned. And I think the one good thing at IIM Ahmedabad is they teach you through case studies, which means they're not teaching you theoretically on any topic, let's say how to create a product or, how to sell a product. But more rather than, they will talk about a company which did something and learn from them how they did it, learn from their history, how they got incepted and where they are, how did they take decisions. So I think that got me a good insights into how I can make my decisions, like when I reach certain stages whether in a job or even today, how to make decisions, right? And especially related to business. So I think those are the learnings that I still carry with me today, and that's, I think, the real takeaway in general from an MBA. And also, I think one thing not to forget is the networking, right? I think we all know that we kind of go to B school, especially for networking, because you could, reset yourself, meet more new people apart from, your bachelor's, and can possibly unlock more opportunities from there. I think, especially in the US, you have this, the networking thing that, you should be doing it right when you start, your first year. Fortunately, I could come to US for an exchange program at UNC Keenan Flagler Business School in North Carolina, and that was also a good exposure for me into the US B school scene.
Oh, nice.
So I'm assuming, like, even though you've had like startup experience before you went to IIM for an MBA, was there always a plan that you wanted to build out something of your own, or like, when you were doing an MBA, or was that something later that you probably like were interested in the startup journey, but like starting a product or a company yourself, was that something on the cards at that point of time?
Yeah, I mean, it was always on the horizon, but I knew that, I need more things to learn. There's still more time to go. And I always think of my career as something that I don't want to achieve in 30 years, or, like when I'm 30 or 35, 40, but rather it's a 60-year-old, like you get retired at 60. So there's much more time to learn things. And whenever you think your time is ready, or, you can take that risk of, let's say, going full time on building something, you can take it. So at that time, I think, I was still learning. I enjoyed learning, being that disciple to just keep taking things in. And then, once you have built that confidence, that's when I started to, let's say, venture out.
And how was your exchange program in the US? Was it everything you thought it would be? Was it completely, oh, you're like, oh, this is exactly what I thought? Or you're like, oh shit, there's a huge culture shock coming here as an immigrant. How was your couple of months when you came in?
I think it was amazing. It gave me more than what I could have expected. I had some expectation into, what I would learn there, the people I would meet, the culture I would, kind of see and experience, any opportunity that I could, kind of bank on. And I think I got pretty much everything in all of these. I met great people, Indians who had come, to do their business school, as well as, non-Indians, other nationalities also, like, because this exchange is not just for me coming to the college, but it's other nationalities, or from other business schools in other foreign countries, they're also coming there. So it's a good immersion of around the world, like where you have these students. Apart from that, I had one more objective. I thought, while I am coming to the US, let me find an opportunity that can, keep me here, like, because I always had that dream of working in the US, because I always thought, US is definitely a country where you have, it's called the land of opportunity, right? So, and the best of the best people are here, as well as, the technology, you can see it's always at the foremost. And I always wanted to experience this and work here in a certain setting where I would enjoy. And as I mentioned before, right, I mean, I had my kind of dreams shattered on that US startup thing. So, but I did had H1B, and that really opened my door to get my next job, which was at Mckinsey. So while I was here in the US for the exchange program, I probably have emailed to about 200 plus people on LinkedIn.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, cold emailing.
Cold. Yeah. Straight cold.
Nice.
That's cold.
Or even, short, I think, right? LinkedIn gives you like 300 words.
Yeah, that in-mail.
Yeah. And I would, keep experimenting with these 300 words. Like, how do I just put the right stuff so that it's actionable enough for the person to, kind of message you back? That's it. Right. And I think I have experimented a lot, and I feel it helps me today. Right. I am trying to reach out to people or customers, how do I make the most impact in a few sentences? I think, this is definitely a skill, I think, and anyone can learn it, but I think you just have to do it more so many times that, kind of build on that. And I think that was a time I feel like, where I actually did this, and happened to convert at McKinsey. I did interview at a bunch of other places, but this was the only job that I got. But, nonetheless, I mean, it was a great job, like, and what better you can get after MBA, at McKinsey, New York. So yeah, and soon after I came to the US, and everything, as you asked for, like, I got it from the exchange.
You should share your template, dude. I'm sure your conversion template will be very useful for people. I mean,
We'll add it to the footnotes of the episode.
yeah. Sign up to iNRI to get Hemant's template on how he got the McKinsey job. I'm telling you, we'll get like some 1,500 people sign up in day one.
Yeah. Happy to do it.
So how is McKinsey? Was the consulting world as exciting, as promising as it sounds? Did you enjoy your time there?
So I enjoyed my time. It's as glamorous as it is from outside, but it's also a lot of hard work, and you're obviously traveling to a lot of places. Living at a great hotels, like while you're traveling to clients. But at the end of the day, you're also working hard day and night to kind of make sure you're good on your deliverables. It's a tough job, I feel, but at the same time I started to think on, all jobs are great, all companies are great, everywhere, McKinsey, Google, Facebook, everyone is great. But one essential question that you have to ask when you are in any company is like, do you enjoy doing that job, right? I mean, whether you are a good fit to the company, right? Not just from a skill perspective or a capability perspective, but from a culture perspective or a personality perspective. Does what you enjoy also kind of fits in there, right? And this is essentially I started to think when I was there, and I realized that McKinsey offered me a lot and could offer me a lot in the future, but somewhere down the line I probably would not be very satisfied. And the reason is because I come from a more technical perspective where I like to code. Having my background in computer science, I had built software at housing and before. So I really enjoyed building rather than probably presenting stuff or like maybe making recommendations, because at the end of the day a consultant job is to kind of recommend something but not really build. I mean, essentially the building part is still on the client, right? You're kind of making
Right.
suggestions through a PowerPoint or an Excel. So that's where I felt the gap, where I thought, even if I become a partner, I would look at my partner and I think I probably don't want to become like him, because I know I probably would not enjoy. And that's where the journey kind of ended at McKinsey. And it was a short time, like 11 months or just a year. In that process, I kind of made the switch to another company.
And what was that company?
Yeah, so the funny thing, I started at a startup. This was called Eloki, and they got acquired by Walmart. At the same time, I joined them. So it was a good join that way. I was decently certain, I would not lose this job very soon. I mean, now Walmart has my back. But I think the good part about joining the startup was working in a very small team. To be clear, I joined in a software engineering role. Like, so this was kind of I would say not many people would do this. I mean, like, especially after a business school degree, you don't go back to your core. But to me, it felt like the right decision to do it. As I said, I enjoyed building, and I thought I could see, right? I mean, like how tech companies, like, the biggest of big, Facebook, Google, they are, going, I mean, so big, and the future is tech. So, like building is something that I should continue doing.
And so, like, I'm seeing this trend here where you've done a startup, then you go to B school, and you're like, you know what, the startup stuff, I want to try consulting, go for the big four, end up at McKinsey. It's like, no, I think the startup is the thing that I'm pretty much going back to. So I'm seeing this pattern emerge. They were like, the startup seems to be the thing that I'm good at. I really enjoy it. Right, Rahul?
Yeah, absolutely. And from what I get is, I think Hemant is someone who sees a need and he just works towards it to fill in that gap. I mean, there's one thing that he told me in the initial call. He didn't mention it right now, but I'm going to say it anyway. Is that you told me an interesting story of when in that startup that was acquired by Walmart, the CTO resigned, right? And Hemant, being Hemant, decided that, hey, why don't I do that as well? And so along with his everything else he started doing, he started working as an acting CTO, took on responsibilities on there as well. So it's pretty cool, right? I mean, I think that personality, that go-getter attitude, I think that's helped him reach the place where he is right now.
Yeah, and like as a third party set of observers, when we're hearing your story, it seems pretty obvious. This is where you're going to end up. You're probably going to start something. It's a when. It's not an if anymore. But like, it's really nice to hear from you your journey on how you got about to getting there.
The origin story.
Yeah, the origin story.
So, how was it stepping into the CTO's role? Was it exciting?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely exciting at the start, but it's not easy, like, because you are kind of jumping 2 or 3 levels up, and probably doing much more than what you are expected. And suddenly, like everyone kind of puts you more accountable to things. Like that if you don't deliver, this is the kind of a consequence, or not consequence. You also start seeing
Yeah.
that consequence,
You
right?
hold yourself accountable, right? I would say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where it becomes stressful and challenging at the same time. And funny thing is, my manager also resigned with the CTO. So I was the senior most guy in the technical team to lead. And we were in the midst of a very critical project where we were kind of transitioning from a logistic provider to another logistic provider, and kind of building the rails to make sure the data and everything, the lifeline of the startup in terms of orders, because it was an e-commerce company. So now all orders are honored, made sure they are paid for, and delivered right on time. So everything was on stake given that. And I was supposed to be working not just within the company, but even with the third party, or like the external company. And then Walmart also had to step in, because this was a point where they could not just let the company do whatever. And so we had Walmart appointed like a reviewer, a technology reviewer, like was actively working with me to make sure I had the support that I need. So I was closely working with the CEO and the COO of my company, as well as the related parties. Yeah.
What was your next step after this? Did you stick around with the company for a while, or did you decide that it's time for a change after a couple of months in that role?
Yeah. So I stayed in the company for roughly 2 years. And in that time, I got a good opportunity to grow the team from 6 to roughly 10 people, where I had a good say into hiring, the next four. So I got a good exposure in hiring and building stuff right from scratch in the company. And then even, acting as a CTO for the last 6 months while I was there. So I think I could foresee that, my time here is, I think, already up. I've learned enough. I can see the company doing, what it will be doing in the next 2 years, and probably I don't want to be here in that case. So my next step was now a big company, right? I I had always thought of working in a FANG company, or like the big tech companies, and I started interviewing while I was doing this acting CTO role. So it was a very stressful time during that period, interviewing, also kind of making sure you are on good on deliverables. So at that time, I got three offers from Microsoft, Amazon, and Facebook, and finally decided to join Facebook because they have
You
the
you
best.
missed two of the alphabets.
I mean, Rahul, like the expression on your face, like I don't know why you're even surprised at this point. Like,
I mean, might as well do the whole mang, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah, I did apply to Netflix, but I got rejected. So,
Oh.
but yeah, I did applied across the spectrum. But I think I had a good chance converting these three. I actually was very happy with the offer. Like Meta being Meta plays a good. And then it was also in New York, so I did not have to leave my city. So that's when I decided, and it was mid-pandemic. So this was 2020 when I joined Facebook.
wow. So while you were doing all this, how did iNRI grow? Like you were acting CTO, you were interviewing, you were applying for jobs, transitioning between jobs. So how did that idea for iNRI grow, or how did you build it? I remember you telling me it was a side project that you were working on for a long time. So how did that conceptualize and become what it is?
So before iNRI, there was a side project that I had been developing along with my day job, and that started during my time at LOK. So soon after McKinsey, like I think I had that bug of wanting to do some coding, like I mean, just build something. And that's where soon after McKinsey, I had a time where I was, free for some time, like just getting my visa done. And so that's when I started just building some algorithms, or, some code to download market data, and market being, like the stock market. So I have been always excited about the financial stock market since I was 18. My dad opened a brokerage account for me in India, and I had started trading then. Like I mean, just buying stocks. I did not had a good idea into what to buy and what to sell. Like just would make up a theory and do it. But over time, having started so early, gets you into that mode of learning. Even laterally, right? As you hear and read. And this time, I started looking at futures and options. So these are basically derivatives, special class, apart from equity, where it's more complex. But I found them interesting because I had heard about them for the first time. And that's where I started looking at, is there something that I can make out of this? And I don't need, more people on this, like I was looking at a project where I could just do it myself, for example. and there was no intention to make it a startup. It was just that I had built some capital out of working in the US, and just want to deploy that, maybe do algorithmic trading, right, and just keep building on my capital. That was the initial idea to start this project, and I continued working on this as I moved to even Facebook. Like I'd work on weekends or maybe sometimes nights whenever I would get time. Kept building, one step at a time. So very slow but very consistent at the same time. That what led to today.
I mean, so I know that like the seed of an idea started at probably a very early age for you. Like you mentioned, at the age of 18, when you got a brokerage account for yourself and you fell in love with trading. You've already accomplished so much, before we actually get into iNRI. I wanted to ask, like, were there times where you actually weren't convinced that life was going to work out the way you wanted, like, or let me say in terms of like failure, that you wanted something, oh, this is not happening, it sucks, and like I have this terrible imposter syndrome or something like that? Because I think, like, for me personally, it just feels like you really know what you always wanted to do, but I'm curious to the other side as well, like if there was any.
Yeah, I did feel imposter syndrome, and to be frank, and especially at bigger companies, like I think, especially let's say when I was at McKinsey, I would feel like, do I really fit here? Am I even capable of being here? Although I felt I was, but there's always that notion that since very big companies see big hot shots, and you're like, oh, like, do I fit in here? I'm not sure. This is much lesser at other companies. Facebook also being one of the big companies, but still very chilled out. Like
Mm-hmm.
so not much of that of a feeling. But I have experienced such feelings, and at such times, what I have said to myself, like I have enough, achieved a lot here to come here, and however it goes, like it will be good, right? I mean, like just have that optimism of keep going, and even if I would look at the worst, or like plan B, it's not that worse. I'm living in a great city, enjoying my life, great friends and family. So that have always been a true source of inspiration, I think, for me to just keep going, whether I change jobs or work at a startup today.
Well, glad to know you're a human occasionally as well.
I thought he was a vampire who never slept. It's like after working, when I get free time, I'll code. I was like, damn, I'd usually watch like a Netflix show or something on the weekends. But so this project, you said that you never envisioned it to grow into something like this. But you told me that you had spent like a sizable amount investing it into this product to build it. So was there at the back of your head, maybe you hadn't accepted it, but did you always see the potential that this had, which is why that you did what you did, which is not only invest your time, but you did invest a good amount of money into it. I think tens of thousands of dollars to build it before you actually, realize that, hey, you know what, let me test it out with different people. But could you tell us a little bit more about on that part?
Yeah, sure. So when I started building it, I think I started with $20,000. So this was all in rupees. I was looking at the Indian market to trade, and I was using basically my dad's account. So I started with 20K, and as I felt more confident into that maybe there are some profits accumulating, I never saw humongous profits. It was always good enough for me to keep justifying what I'm doing. Right, I never lost enough that I'm like, oh no, I can't do this. Right, I mean, so I think that was a good thing. I was a bit conservative also at the same time, that I can keep moving slow. I don't need to get a lottery today, right? Or make 10 times of a bet. So I started with 20K, kept raising 10K every year, and by 2021 I think I had about $50,000 in trading capital in the account. And by then the platform had reached enough maturity in terms of I could offer it, or abstract that tool out as a product to, let's say, some traders. And that's what I did. I happened to know some traders from my school, or basically from IIT, that were professional traders in India. And I just gave it to them that, would you want to try this out on your personal capital or maybe professionally? And they were quite appreciative of the fact that I could build this up without having much professional knowledge, and being able to really think from a trader's point of view, that what tools could be required by them. And one of them was very encouraging, to the point that he said, you should definitely make this as a product, possibly sell it, maybe one day, but it's recently at a good stage, where one could use it. And that moment was an important moment to me to apply to Y Combinator. So this was in 2021. I was just casually going through LinkedIn, and then a post came up, apply to YCombinator, right? Like I used to follow them, right? And there was a timeline, like they have, let's say, two batches every year that they do. And I came across this post, apply to YCombinator. And I spoke to my wife, and she said, yeah, I mean, makes sense, why don't you do it? And that's when I thought, I just started digging into more, how could I do it? So basically, it required for me to having a co-founder. I started looking at, who do I know? And, maybe someone could become a co-founder. And I found one, and we applied to YC that time. And we got interviewed, which was pretty big in the first place, because usually even getting an interview is very tough.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
So I was happily surprised. I was not expecting, to be honest. I just casually, I mean, we did do a lot of work into writing the application, but we did not expected that this would turn out this way. That we would even have an interview. Like we were not even working on the project after we applied. We did not submit an update or anything. And suddenly, out of the blue, I got an email that you have an interview in the next 2 days. And I reached out to my co-founder and said, "Oh, we have to prepare for this." So it was a good interview. I think we hit all the good points. The only thing was there that I was not full time, and I think that was a miss, and that we could not get into YC then. But again, it was a moment where I realized that I actually took that feedback literally. They said that whenever you're full time, join us again or apply again, and we're happy to reconsider. And I literally took that feedback, that yeah, maybe I should do this.
So they turned you down because you're not working full time on your product, really?
Kind of yes and no. So I was working part time. That's true, because I was working at Facebook. But I also happen to be an immigrant, right? And being on H1B, you always have these doubts whether can you really leave your job and be in this country, right? I mean, and how? This how question is very, people are not really aware. And I was in the same boat. Like, if I leave my job today, or if I commit to leaving my job today, how will this really pan out? Do I have to go back to India and do this startup? But I don't want to do that. I want to be in the US and work on this, right? So probably I didn't do the research on this. I said, I was not even expecting this would happen, and had not talked to a lot of people on this, if even this comes to this point. So I said, maybe next year. And the reason I said next year is I was set to be marrying my wife then in November. And I thought, after this was clear to me, like if you get married, you can become a dependent, go on an H4 visa. And that's what I did. So, or I thought, like I would do. And that, I think, hesitation kind of, they got it. And, they thought like, these guys are probably not committed right now and maybe want to be in the future. So, that's why they said, we do batches every year, right? So you don't have to come today. I mean, if you're not ready, right, you can always come into the next batch. So that was a real feedback from them. And I thought, I should have said, that I would leave it tomorrow, but I just didn't have that confidence as an immigrant. And that's why, I got rejected.
It's
fascinating. Yeah.
I mean, I just want to put it out there. Like, it's crazy to think like somebody as prolific and pretty much go-getter like you, like pretty much all the checks covered. The one place where you even had your sort of doubts is the US immigration system comes in and like, hey, you know what? We don't care even if you are as successful as you are. We are putting a dent into your dreams. So, I mean, it speaks to like how sad the system is here that, somebody as smart and capable as you has to, think 100 times about making a decision like this. Because obviously, like, you're starting a company, you're a job creator. It must be like the US pretty much should be stapling a green card to your residency application. Like, here you go, go ahead and create those jobs. But right? I mean, but it's not.
No, it's a very nice way to put it. I didn't think of it like that. A lot of us are not as accomplished, and we have these doubts and these limitations. Like, so when you hear someone like Hemant who's like knocked every ball out of the park, his hesitation, this thing, I'm like, yeah, it is a stumbling block.
Yeah.
And to think of it like, at least Hemant persisted through, right? Think of the number of tech startups or any cool products that we missed out on just because of this block.
I'm glad that didn't stop you. Like, I'm very glad, because here we are today,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, truly, I think life as an immigrant here has so many hurdles. And then every time it's more of a mental thing, that limits you in a certain way. And, you cannot possibly reach your potential unless you really are persistent, I think.
So what happened after you found out about the reject? Did you like immediately go ahead and quit your job?
No, I think then I thought, I took a step back and I thought, I'm getting married. Let me enjoy this end of this year. It was November already. And I decided, after in 2022, I would leave it. I would also have the bonus, everything done, 6 monthly evaluation, everything. And by then, I would already be comfortably into my marriage, having things set up. So March 2022 was a timeline to resign from Facebook. But things sometimes don't go as planned, right? I mean, I did resign, but a lot of things which happened around it is basically in February 2022, we realized that we're gonna expect a baby. So this was, kind of got me thinking again. Should I do a startup now? I mean,
Yeah.
is this the right time? I did know that I want a baby, and I think it was a very planned thought. It's not like it's not expecting, but really helped me question. Maybe I can be in Facebook for a couple more years, let things settle. Like it's not good to go full all in,
Mhm.
like risk everything possibly. Yeah, but at this time, I think my wife was super supportive of me continuing to do what I want and supporting the family and shielding me in general to like from all kind of perceptions that I can have as I do so.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because I think that's a very big aspect that immigrants have to go through. Like, there's such a huge cultural stigma around like actually going on venturing out on your own. And not only that, the fact that you still were thinking about it, when you're planning to start a family, like I can imagine the daggers that were coming from back home. Like, what are you even thinking? Are you out of your mind? Like,
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's very, very true.
Yeah. Funny thing, like my dad reached out to my wife in private,
Okay.
trying to convince me that, maybe I should not do this. So my
Wow.
wife told me this, about this later. So yeah, a lot of credit goes to my wife, I think here in terms of making sure I am doing as I planned originally. And, just building that confidence, whatever may happen, we'll sail it through. And worst case, like you can always come back to the job next year or after that. And I think personally as a couple, we don't really fancy buying a home very soon or buying that Porsche. Like we are good to go with a Honda and let's just be okay. To be honest, we didn't even had a car then. We have always, both of us, from a family perspective, also have always been comfortable, not desiring a lot, but just living within what we can think to afford. So I think that's I can probably share a good point here. Is like this is definitely a thing that you in general good to practice. Like where you can keep your finances as simple as well as less as possible, so that you have more opportunities to just think about or more runway to just do things what you want.
Well, I'm glad you're smart about your finance because obviously you're running, a financial company, and so
Yeah, I know. It's a really
yeah,
bad disclaimer, right? Hey
yeah.
guys, I've created this fintech platform, but I just want to say I'm really bad with money. I don't know.
I just drive a Porsche and stuff, and like got like a 500K in credit card debt or whatever. But you guys should invest in my
Yeah,
company.
definitely. I really enjoy that line that you said about your wife. The problem is, a lot of times the people behind that enable you to reach that point are often not recognized or not in the limelight as much. No, right now we see you, we like Hemant, the conquering startup founder,
Yeah.
right? Who's literally knocked everything out. A lot of people don't know that you had a phase for like many, many months where you were given an environment to work on your dreams, on your platform, whatever it is you needed to do, while your wife was like, you know what, I'll handle it. You do your thing. And I think as much as credit for the success goes to her, and I think it's very cool that you mentioned it as well. And again, congratulations to her as well when for
Yeah.
whatever you guys have achieved.
That is right. And every day we count our blessings and we do reflect back sometimes, probably every month, how far we have come and made those sacrifices as well, in kind of coming it here. But ultimately, we feel that joy of having done multiple things, like having a baby now. So my daughter is now almost 14 months old, and seeing her grow as well as the startup, to see that grow, is just another joy. It's to be honest, it feels like sometimes running two startups at a time.
Or having two babies.
Yeah, that is
and,
true.
and and your daughter's a part of this podcast as well. We could listen to her a little bit here and there. Yeah, she's the fourth member of the podcast.
Yeah, I'm actually curious. Does she have an INRI account yet?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
So, okay, you're going to have a baby. You're now on the crossroads, almost decided to take the plunge of leaving Meta. You took the plunge, like you said, you decided to leave. So, how long was it that you focused only on this and took a break from like a proper day job and you focused on this? How long did that take you to like conceptualize and get it kicked off?
So soon after I left, I applied to YC again that year, summer batch. And this time I had a different co-founder.
No, wait,
So-
what happened to the first one?
so I think the arrangement was that if he get into YC, then he would continue. So
Oh,
and he also got a great job. Like he was working in India that time, and he got an offer from Uber London. So
oh.
I think that was good for him to.
I'm telling you, man, in a couple of years, he's going to feel like that third founder of Apple. You know, the guy who sold his shares who sold his shares back. I'm telling you, he's like, damn it. Should have just stuck on.
So that happened, and then I got a different co-founder. I also knew him for a long time, and we started working. But we started in January and worked for 3-4 months. And during that period, I started to feel, like co-founder is not just someone you're working with. It's not like an employee. Like it is okay to not enjoy working with a peer. It's a big company. It's okay. But I think that cannot be true for a co-founder. You really have to enjoy working with them, the person they are, not just for the work they do, but the way they kind of just work around as a person, right? As a human being. And I think that's where I started to see that our personalities are somewhat different, and possibly there is a gap that we are starting to build, and possibly this will not really work out in the long term. And we kind of reached that decision during the application, when YC was going. And so I put an update that we are parting ways, and that was probably the reason that YC rejected that time. And we didn't get any specific reason, but I think so. So that was a point where I think it became very tough for me. This was April 2022. I kind of went down a valley of disappointment. Like I left my job. I have parting ways with my co-founder. I left my job for a reason where YC probably would have got me, but now they're rejecting me. And now I'm also expecting a baby. So many things, like a lot of responsibilities as well as just general stress, about what will happen, and did I really make the right choice. Like I think this is a question which will generally haunts you, right, in anything when you take a decision, that did you really make a good decision, right? But everything aside, I just continue to wake up every day, sit down on my desk, even when I would not do much in the morning, but I would just sit down and make my notes, maybe code some days. But I kept doing it, like I just continue to build, or just do that habit. Don't assume that you're not going to achieve anything. Always start your day that you will probably achieve something, even if it is small enough, right? So that was the idea. And then I thought, by June or July, I think I had built enough to again feel confident. And then I thought, this time again I will apply to YCombinator. But I now needed another co-founder, right? So this was my third co-founder now. And I did not had a good idea this time that how to find one, because I probably had spoken to many people and nothing was really kind of panning out. But a good friend of mine from IIM Ahmedabad, he reached out to me on LinkedIn. I haven't spoken to him in a long time, but so he was based in India, and we connected over, just he wanting to know or curious enough to learn what I'm doing. Like he was tracking me on LinkedIn, and I had put up, I'm a founder of the Stealth startup. So that's where we got connected again, and we applied to YC for the third time with the same idea, with more progress. And this is when we actually got in.
So 3 years worth of YC applications and time and
Third
effort.
time's a charm.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, like, so I think this may be a question a few of our listeners might have. So at this point in time, were you actually like trying to sign up customers for iNRI at that time, or were you focused on like building out the product itself and like perfecting it? Were you bringing in some sort of external customer funds through, or like talking to them at that point in time, or were you more focused on like refining it and making it polished and getting it to a place where it is?
Yeah, so to clarify, INR I hadn't even started then. Like this was the same trading idea I had been working on.
Okay.
And I applied to YC with the same idea 3 times. INRI happened during the YC batch, which was early this year when we were doing the batch. And during the batch, we pivoted to building INRI. kind of pause the idea of the trading thing and then begin full time or completely committed to, let's say, building iNRI in March of this year. Although my journey spans out much more in terms of being entrepreneurial, but iNRI is still a very recent or maybe a just a 9-month journey into building it.
So when you say pivoted, what's the difference, if you don't mind me asking, between your Trade 94 and the iNRI? Like, I would have thought they were almost one and the same, but either branding difference, or is there something more?
Yeah, similar in nature. Like that idea or the trading thing was more geared towards derivatives traders, which are more professional in nature, wanting to trade futures and options. Whereas INRI is geared towards the NRIs wanting to invest and more into like mutual funds. So it's a more passive way of investing or like putting money in the market compared to trading, which is more frequent or
Got it.
it's more like a professional job for someone to do it. But it's still same. I mean, the domain is same. It's still fintech, financial markets, stock market. But we pivoted slightly in terms of who are we targeting, what are we building, and the products around it.
And apart from the investment, was the YC experience fruitful for you, helpful in helping you grow this? What is your takeaway from that?
Yeah, definitely. I think as an immigrant, it was definitely worth it. As a first-time founder, it was definitely worth it. And I could meet a lot of fellow entrepreneurs, fellow founders who have been in similar boats like me, from different countries, from within the US, how they are shaping up. And I think the good part about YC is like they take in a lot of young founders. I have not seen many older founders, so it's a good way to kind of meet people of the same age or like plus minus 10 years, but being able to kind of see their journey as well into building it. As well as, I think the one really thing which YC helped me in is the immigration part. As I said before, I did not have the confidence that can I really do a startup being in the US. And the third time I applied to YC, I had learned more into what I could do even if I had to be start my own company. And that's where I started to learn about O1 visa. So I had long known about O1 visa, but I always thought this is not for me because I am not that extraordinary. Because that's a criteria to have one. But getting into YC, kind of, I realized that a lot of founders do get that visa, and so that's how I started for it. Now I have finally got it, and it took me like what 6-7 months after I got into YC to get it, and until that period, I was just not employed, but kept working for the company.
So I had a question.
Mhm.
You said you got it 6-7 months after you got into YC. So when you were working on this, you quit your job and you're working on it. Were you allowed to do that on an H4?
Yeah. So I was on H4 and without a EAD. So if you don't have a EAD, I mean, you can work, right? I mean, you can work as a gardener, you can cook, right? So I can code as well. So there is no restriction in terms of working, but you cannot draw a salary
Okay.
from a company. Like you cannot be legally getting paid. So I was not getting paid. And for a long span of 16 months, I did not
Wow.
get paid anything. Like, I mean, I left Facebook in March 2022. And since then, I got an H4. And by June 2023, that's when I got my O1 and I got formally employed in the company. But you can definitely incorporate a company. So ownership is different from employment. So I can incorporate a company, I can own the shares, but I cannot be employed as an employee.
So you incorporated it and you worked on it, but you didn't make any income out of it. And that, okay, got it. Oh, that's pretty interesting. I think one thing I found is a good percentage of the immigrants here, right? A lot of them have that entrepreneurial bug, but it's just so murky, the map towards this end point that you've reached. It's just so convoluted and murky that everyone has questions, right? They just don't know how to navigate it. Like, I think someone listening to this will understand now that, hey, you know what? You can incorporate a company, you can work on it as long as you don't draw a salary. It's still within your legal visa permitting rules and everything. You're not breaking anything by doing so. And you're like a great example. And I think just listening to this episode itself is like, I think there's like a treasure trove of information. And a lot of these tidbits that you said from start till now and till the end of this episode that can definitely help and benefit a new future entrepreneur.
Yeah. And, let me put it this way. Like, as we hear your story, at least for me, I would personally think like you are somebody who's very capable of, at least on paper, to have like an O1 visa, which we all know it's like, extraordinary But then when you yourself are seeing yourself as somebody who is not, oh, this is like an unreachable target, and you've been able to achieve that, it just shows how dysfunctional that how we seem to see things are in terms of the visa system is, and how actually you can navigate that. So yeah, just adding to what Rahul is saying, like there's a lot of quirks and like gray areas, but as long as you take your time to research about it and
Yep.
dig into it,
Yep.
there are ways to do it.
Yeah, ultimately you need to kind of spend your time, be optimistic that you will find a way, and possibly people will be on the path to help you out and support you. And essentially there is definitely a way, like as long as you are doing the right thing, like for yourself and for everyone. So this was taken care of for me, in some sense, and
Yep.
especially YC again, was helpful here, that getting into YC is one of that recognition or that exclusivity that you can claim as a criteria for getting an O1. And then there were other things also which I could get from my past experiences, having satisfied for the eligibility.
Got it. So now you're done with YC. I'm assuming by now you must have launched it for public use. So
Yeah.
when did that YC journey end? Just so that I can get a sense of timeline.
So YC batch starts generally in January, for the winter, and so this started this year and roughly ended around April 2023 this year.
Okay. And what was your journey after that?
So we pivoted around March, which was just 1 month short of ending the batch. So we didn't even had a product then. I mean, it was fairly, just a website you can log in, see something very static, like you can't like click, like do some buttons there. And so the next part was after YC, kept building on the product, making it more functional, making it more digital, right, and self-serve, right? Because the initial product that we launched was very much offline. Let's say if you were to invest in India, I would work with you on email, probably use Google Drive to take your documents and then, pass in to a third party, which was our supporting, as a back office. So that was a process, very, very offline, very physical or, manual in nature. But this is essentially a start for a lot of startups. You start things very physically, or manually, and then you start abstract out, okay, this is what you have to automate. This is how the product should build out, at scale, right? And you don't have to worry at scale in the initial days. You just have to worry about getting the first customer. This is a bigger problem than people think that, oh, I need to build this and this, but you just have to get a customer, right?
I'm going to paraphrase one of Paul Graham's essays. I love reading his essays, and there's one that says, do things that are unscalable, like scale them out. And you've pretty much just nailed that argument here. And for those of you who don't know, like Paul Graham is the founder of Y-Combinator, and some of his essays are like really great material that everyone should be reading. At least that's my personal opinion. So yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Hemant, on that.
No, I second on that. His essays are really amazing, and some of things that we have tried out is actually very much true what he says. And we were literally selling before we were building. We would sell to a customer, would you want to invest in India? Would you, offer $5,000? He would say yes. Okay, then yeah, let's get him on board. How to get that done is the next question. And like, oh, take his documents, and like from his angle, it has to look very digital. Like the way he's doing. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you could be doing grunt work or trying to make sure everything works the way that it should. And that's where like we started abstracting out a lot of these physical processes. Let's say building the KYC flow or investing flow, onboarding and so on. So what exists today, let's say on the platform, more than 95% is what I have literally built myself in terms of
Nice.
coding, right? And I have my co-founder who takes care of, let's say, the operation side. So he's been in India primarily, and I've been in the US. So our roles are primarily around it. I'm talking to customer, building the product, and then he's taking care of the operations and the supply side partnerships that needs to be taken care of, and also digital marketing, right? I mean, like, so we market a lot of on, let's say, social media, create content around NRIs. So this is something that he kind of looks at. So I mean, this 6 months has been all about that,
Nice.
creating a good ecosystem and a confidence around that we can build this, right? Or like whenever a customer comes in, how do we create that perception that you should be the one who should be doing this, right? And investment is a very tricky business, right? Because people are not investing $10, they're looking at least
Yeah.
100,000 or $10,000. So the biggest hurdle here is trust, right? Do you trust your money with us, given that we are a 9-month-old company, right? And how do you build that trust in the first impression or after you sign up, and the communication you do, the content you deliver? So that has always been our focus whenever we do something, that how do we build trust 1% at a time? and continue to have more conversions as people sign up. So this has been roughly the journey, and this has been our objective, to just create a great system that people believe in and that they believe in us as well at the same time.
What are some pain points that you faced, not in your journey as an immigration or you stayed at home for 16 months? Like, those are all definitely challenges and pain points, right? Specifically in terms of once iNRI's kicked off and you said you're talking to different customers, trying to get them on board. What are some pain points that you felt, something that they needed you to add to this? Any difficulty that you faced in adding anything to that?
I think solving for customer expectation is always tough. Whenever you onboard a customer, they have certain expectation that this is how the system should work, and trying to keep pace with that is not easy, right? Yeah, you definitely want to provide them the best service, as good as let's say the competing platforms. So how do you kind of balance that out? Is generally I think the toughest part.
Okay.
In general, building itself is not much tough, but just identifying what you want to build and then making sure it delivers to the customer in the right way. I think that those, I think, two are the major challenges.
Okay. Are there any restrictions for visa holders here to invest in India? One, and two, are there any taxation issues? As you're an Indian resident here, investing in India. Are there any taxation issues that you, as someone doing that, will face? That's a two-part question. The first one is, are you allowed to do so? And second is, are we taxed there and here as well, or is it just here?
Yeah, I mean, there's no restriction on NRIs to invest in India, and there are already, as we've spoken to many of them, at least I think 1,000 of NRIs that I've spoken personally. There's no restriction. However, there are some limitation into what asset classes that they can invest in, and even in mutual fund, there are certain mutual funds that they can invest in, and that is primarily around the compliance or regulation perspective, that some mutual funds may not be compliant with respect to the US IRS, let's say. But the good part is that we automatically filter those funds out.
Oh, sweet. Awesome.
So as soon as you put in your residence country, you are seeing the fund that you are eligible to invest in.
Awesome.
There's no confusion here in terms of what you could do and what you cannot.
Okay.
On the taxation front, investing cross-border is definitely complicated, because given that you're living in the United States, you are paying taxes here. But if you're making an investment in India, you would be subject to taxes there when it's part of capital gains, right? When you redeem your investments, so you would be taxed not twice, but you would be taxed at two places. So you need to kind of file your forms in a way where you are not getting double taxed. So you would need your help from tax consultants or CPAs or CAs that can help you file the right way, so that you're not paying double, or just paying what is supposed to be done. And that's where we also identified this as a problem. When we spoke with a lot of our customers, we realized that this is a core problem that we should be looking to solve, or owning to solve. So we have built a network of tax consultants, investment advisors within the iNRI ecosystem, that if you as a customer want specific tax advice, we can help you connect with them.
Oh, fantastic. Something that'll come very useful.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because like you guys are providing that solution. Like, hey, you have any questions here? You're doing that. It's pretty awesome, because it seems like you want to be the one place where all these questions can be answered, like eventually, and that's already great. You're already solving for those customers' problems.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think I don't think a lot of platforms give you like, hey, you know what? Here's a bunch of tax consultants you can talk to figure out your thing. It's like, hey, figure it out yourself. And that's something that scares a lot of folks, early investors or early immigrants into investing. The fact that you've thought ahead and you're giving, hey, you know what? Don't worry, we've got you covered. Here you go. Talk to any one of these. These are the folks that we are partnered with. I think that's awesome.
And that's not something that even tax consultants based only out of here. Like if you go to H&R Block and ask them, hey, how do I, invest in India and how can I do the tax stuff? They'll be like, we don't know anything about this stuff. So you're genuinely solving a really good problem.
Yeah. Our vision is to create a trusted gateway to invest in India, and at the same time make you feel confident about doing it, right? Like you are covered as you go about it, not just from the point of onboarding, but from onboarding to getting invested, and even after getting invested, what are the implications of doing so. And so covering all those aspects is something that we have clearly identified that way in solving, building product or services around it.
You mentioned a word multiple times. I'm going to pick on that. You said the word trust.
Yeah.
For new people, for new investors who are just hearing about your platform, who are considering putting amounts in it, do you have a message for them as a founder of iNRI? Because you said, right, I felt it was very significant and powerful lines. Like, they need to trust you and the platform to put in a significant amount of money into it, right?
Mm.
So as a founder and to the new folks listening to this, do you have a message for them?
Definitely, like I think building trust is also comes around building it unscalably. So when I mean this is, like I do customer calls every day. And the reason I do so is like I want to be more approachable and accessible as a founder or as a CEO, that if you as a customer have a question, I am here to answer that. Right. And if you go on our website, there are two buttons. One is get started, which is will take you to login, and there's another button which is join our weekly Q&A. And there's also a button for book a Zoom call. And this essentially leads to my Calendly link that you can book a Zoom call anytime on my calendar, right from my website, right? And even for the weekly Q&A, this is meant to get people, let's say, those probably could be hesitant, let's say, booking a call, right? But are comfortable, just chiming in, listening to someone, talking about the platform. And this is the whole idea that I started this weekly Q&A, and we do that every Sunday. So every Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific, I hold this Q&A and I just go about the platform, talking about it, how we created this, what is the motivation, what are we doing next, and we even do product launches. So this Sunday we're also going to have this weekly Q&A, 10 a.m. Pacific. We're going to do a very interesting product launch about smart investing. So we're creating a robo investing tool where you give in your preferences, and we will tell you a recommended portfolio where you can, it's a good starting point. But coming back to the trust point, these are the ways that we are trying to solve for: is be accessible, be approachable, not just to someone at the support team, but right up to the CEO, which is me. So like a message to everyone is, if you have a question, I'm always there to speak with you. And by now, I must have spoken to more than 1,000 NRIs, and this is not just the US, right? I've spoken to people from Australia, UK, Middle East, even one from South Korea. To my surprise, that how did they hear about me?
Wow. I mean, I don't
Wow.
even have that many Instagram followers, so just speaks to like the sort of dedication you do to like individually speak to these customers. I mean, I guess like on one side, that's actually the job, that you need to speak to each and every one of your customers to understand their needs, and then you're doing a fab job of that. So
I mean, it's someone's hard-earned money, right? I mean, think about it. They're like toiling day and night to get that into their bank accounts, and for them to actually trust you with it, they need to feel comfortable and they need to feel empowered enough to know that, hey, you know what? I trust him, and I trust his platform, and I think you're going about it the right way. So that's pretty cool, and I think we'll probably be tuning into your weekly calls on Sunday, Hemant. So, guys, to everyone listening in, Hemant's got a surprise for you guys. Like other platforms, iNRI has platform fees associated with it. So Hemant's come up with a cool surprise for everyone who's listening on the podcast. I'm not going to steal it away from him. I'm going to let him tell you guys what the surprise is.
So we do have a Diwali extended offer where you get 2 years of zero platform charges if you invest by December 31st. But because I love these guys, and I love the people who are listening to this podcast, so I have a special offer for you as well. So Rahul and Sanjay will put a link, but basically if you click or sign up using this link, which has a referral code of area 51, you get 1 year additional on top of the base offer, which makes it 3 years of zero platform charge.
I mean, it's not like we bribed Hemant at all with any of this stuff. He gave it out of his, loving heart. But no, jokes aside, that's awesome, Hemant. Like 3 years of no platform fees for investing your money in India, like, and at a one-stop shop solution. That's amazing.
Yep. And I know at the start of the years when folks, we suddenly wake up and like, hey, you know what? New Year's resolutions and this and that. I need to be better with my money. I need to start building more of a passive income and stuff. This is a great way for you to kickstart that. Don't wait till Jan. Start now itself. We'll be putting out that referral link. So click on that. You don't have to do anything else. You just click on that link. I'm a member of iNRI. I signed up. I have seen how easy it is to sign up. You just click on that link, it takes you, and you put in your email ID and your password, and you get a confirmation email. Click on it and you're set. That's it. And then you're good to go. So it's a few clicks. Don't lose out on this. Make use of it. And again, if you have questions, you've got access to the CEO and the founder, the man himself. You've got access to his Calendly link. You've got his weekly calls. And as you can probably tell from the podcast episode, he is very approachable and he will take his time out to sit down and explain everything that you need to know, answer all your questions multiple times if it needs to be.
Yep. And yeah, Hemant, thanks once again, for telling us and sharing us your story, because I would definitely think there's a lot of folks who would be inspired not only to use iNRI, but to hear about your journey and help you and probably try the same thing as well.
I am very glad to kind of speak a lot today, and not just I think it got me a moment of reflection, like what I've done, and just lived through it as I was speaking, and I think that was really a good experience for me to just personally to just live as I was speaking. So thank you to you guys for having me here and giving me this opportunity to record this.
Hey, happy to have you, man. And please, you're more than welcome to come back anytime you want. We're rooting for you.
Yep.
But more than happy to have you back in a couple of months to tell us how the journey's been, your milestones, what you've been up to. And thanks for doing this. Thanks for not telling me to get lost when I reached out on LinkedIn.
And we are also hoping, I'm just throwing in the bait right now, when you actually go for an IPO, we'll probably get an exclusive episode with you or something in the big leagues.
Yeah, definitely. As you know that I am so approachable, so
Nice. And then to the folks who said, hey, do a light and positive and happy episode, here you go. Hey, what funny story, we have a new member joined the team. His name is Cyril, right? He's an editor. We gave him the last episode. That's his first episode ever editing. And it's completely filled with stories of tragic incidents. And he texts me in the middle of the night. He's like, are all the episodes like this? So it's not. We do the positive upside as well. And here's one for you guys.
Yep. And that's a wrap, folks. So anything else we want to cover, Rahul?
No, I think we initially thought it wouldn't take this long, but I think we went on for quite a bit. I had a great time just listening to Hemant's journey and a lot of lessons that I picked up, a lot of information that I picked up, I probably would try to implement. So that's it from me. I just wanted to thank everyone for tuning in.
Yep. And we hope to catch you on our next episode soon.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.